The night sky above Earth was quiet, but in the silence there drifted something that had no place among the stars of this small world. It was a giant shadow, a broken hulk of metal, floating far above the planet. No one knew exactly when it had arrived. Some whispered it had been there for decades, maybe longer, circling Earth like a ghost. To the people who looked through telescopes, it seemed like a ruined station, a piece of lost junk from a forgotten age. But those who studied it closer knew it was something else. It was not human. It was alien. This wreck was the size of a city. Its surface was scarred, torn apart by battles fought far away in the dark of space. Plates of armor hung loose, some sections were ripped open as if claws of fire had torn them. Strange markings ran along its hull, symbols that no one could read. Windows stretched across its body, but behind the black glass nothing moved. The ship looked dead, and yet there was something about it that felt alive, like a beast sleeping with one eye open. Governments on Earth tried to keep its existence a secret. Only the highest circles of power knew about the wreck, and they feared what it could mean. To some, it was an opportunity, a treasure left in the sky waiting to be claimed. To others, it was a curse, a reminder that humanity was not alone and that greater powers walked the stars. For years, they argued. No one dared to touch it. It floated there in silence, watching, but silence could not last forever. One day, a decision was made. A group of soldiers and scientists were sent into orbit to investigate the wreck. They traveled in silence, their ship small compared to the hulking mass that loomed ahead of them. As they approached, the wreck grew larger, blocking out the light of the Earth below. It was like flying toward a dead god. The closer they came, the more details they saw. Hull breaches gaped open like wounds. Weapons that once guarded its flanks hung lifeless, their barrels cracked and blackened. Yet even broken, the ship was terrifying. The first landing team stepped onto its surface. Their boots echoed against metal that had not felt life for countless years. The air inside was gone, the chambers empty, the corridors frozen in silence. Lights were dead, wires hung like vines, and strange machines lay in pieces. The team moved carefully, their flashlights piercing the darkness. At every step they expected something to move, something to breathe, but the wreck gave them nothing. It was like walking through a tomb. Still, there was power here. They could feel it. The walls seemed to hum faintly when they touched them, as if some heartbeat still pulsed deep inside. In the control chamber, they found the great throne of the ship, an alien command center with consoles unlike anything human eyes had ever seen. The glass panels were cracked but still intact, their surfaces smooth and dark like water. For a moment, no one spoke. The weight of history pressed against them. Here was proof that humanity was not alone, proof that the galaxy was filled with beings far beyond their world. But this proof was not dead. It was waiting. The scientists worked for days. They connected wires, set up equipment, and tried to read the systems. The alien code made no sense, but one thing became clear. The wreck was not just a ruin. Its heart still lived. Deep inside, power stirred like embers in ash. The team debated if they should wake it, but curiosity and ambition overpowered fear. Humanity had always reached for the unknown, even when it was dangerous. Finally, they activated a single console. At first, nothing happened. The ship remained silent. The men and women inside waited, listening to the faint hiss of their own breath inside their helmets. Then slowly a pulse echoed through the walls. It was low, deep, like the sound of thunder rolling far away. The panels lit faintly, glowing with symbols that burned like blue fire. The entire wreck trembled, as though it had taken a breath. From the outside, those watching on human ships saw lights flicker across the alien hull. Windows glowed, patterns lit up, and for the first time in centuries, the warship remembered life. Alarms rang inside the human vessels, but the team on the wreck did not stop. They pressed forward, connecting more systems, desperate to see how far it would go. The pulse grew louder. The lights spread. The ship seemed to recognize that it was no longer in the hands of its old masters. It was as if it was turning its gaze toward humanity. A sound rose from deep within, a sound like a heart beating through metal walls. Then the Earth below heard it too. Signals burst across orbit, waves of energy scattering into the atmosphere. Satellites flickered, communications were cut, and every radar station lit up with warnings. Across the planet, people looked up at the sky, unaware that something ancient had woken above their heads. The team realized too late what they had done. By touching the wreck, by feeding it power, they had not just awakened a machine, They had called out into the dark of space. Somewhere far away, others might have heard. The leader of the team turned toward the glowing consoles, the light reflecting in her eyes. She felt it deep inside, as though the ship itself was watching her. This wreck, this forgotten monster, had chosen not to kill them. It had allowed them inside, but why? The question hung in the air as the wreck pulsed again. Brighter, stronger, its heartbeat echoing across the stars. Humanity had awakened something that was never meant for them, something left behind for reasons they could not yet understand. The forgotten wreck was no longer silent. It was alive, and it had just chosen Earth as its new home. The wreck was no longer just a silent shadow above Earth. It had responded to human touch. Its pulse echoed across the skies, and its broken windows glowed faintly with alien light. On the ground, governments panicked. Military leaders argued, scientists demanded more time, and common people whispered of doomsday. But one truth was clear: they could not ignore it anymore. The wreck was awake, and Earth had already called out to the stars. World powers formed a secret alliance, one that crossed old borders and rivalries. For the first time in history, humanity agreed on something without endless delay. They would study the wreck. They would try to control it. If they failed, the ship might destroy them. If they succeeded, it could become the greatest weapon mankind had ever known. It was a dangerous gamble, but humanity had always thrived on risks. Engineers, soldiers, and scientists were sent to live aboard the wreck. They called it Leviathan, a name that fit its monstrous form. Day by day, they repaired its body. They patched hulls with human steel, replaced shattered conduits with Earth-made wires, and fed power into its empty veins. The deeper they went, the stranger it became. Machines that seemed fused with flesh, hulls that changed shape as if alive, and symbols that burned with colors no human language could hold. The more they worked, the more resistance they met. Systems refused to connect. Weapons locked themselves, ignoring every command. Energy flowed one moment and cut off the next, as though the ship was testing them. At times it even seemed to lash out, shorting circuits, sending shocks that burned equipment, even injuring men. Some whispered that the Leviathan was alive and that it hated being touched. But humanity was stubborn. They refused to stop. Night and day they rebuilt what the aliens had abandoned. And slowly, piece by piece, the ship began to respond. Lights stayed on longer. Weapons hummed faintly as if remembering their purpose. And deep within its core, the heartbeat grew stronger. Then the scientists discovered something they had not expected. Signals were leaking out of the ship, faint bursts of code slipping into the darkness of space. At first they thought it was noise, fragments of the alien systems. But when they translated the patterns, they realized it was more. It was a call. The ship was sending a message, and it was not meant for humans. Panic spread among the leadership. If others out there heard it, they might come. The wreck had been abandoned for a reason, and perhaps its masters were not gone after all. Some leaders wanted to shut everything down, to abandon the Leviathan before it drew unwanted eyes. But others argued differently. They said it was too late to stop. The signal had already gone out. If something was coming, then humanity's only hope was to make the Leviathan their own. So they pushed harder. They tore deeper into the alien systems, forcing connections, building new bridges between human technology and alien code. Human pilots trained in simulators designed to match the ship's systems, preparing to guide something they did not fully understand. Scientists worked sleepless nights to translate symbols, learning how the aliens had once commanded their monster. Progress was slow, but it was progress. Months turned to years. By now, the Leviathan no longer looked like a corpse. Its hull was patched, its weapons gleamed, and its engines stirred faintly like lungs ready to breathe again. Around it floated human fleets, guardians to a weapon still in slumber. To the people of Earth, the Leviathan became a legend. Children whispered about the starship in the sky. Soldiers swore one day it would protect them. Scientists dreamed of the power it held. Humanity had claimed it, but no one knew at what cost. Inside the ship, strange things happened. Some engineers reported hearing whispers, voices echoing faintly through the metal halls. Others said doors opened for them without command, as if guiding them. One pilot swore the ship responded to his thoughts, moving slightly under his touch. Many dismissed these stories as fatigue, but others believed the Leviathan was testing its new masters, choosing who was worthy. One night, as storms raged across the Earth below, the Leviathan system surged without warning. Lights blazed across its hull, brighter than ever before, turning night into day. Entire power grids on Earth flickered and failed. Satellites went blind. In control rooms, alarms screamed. The ship was waking, but no one had touched it. Scientists rushed to contain it. Soldiers prepared to fire, ready to destroy the very thing they had built. But then the ship quieted again, as if mocking their fear. The lights dimmed, the pulse softened, and silence returned. Yet the message was clear. The Leviathan was no longer a tool. It was something greater, something that allowed itself to be rebuilt only because it wanted to be. Far away in the deep of space, something stirred. Faint signals answered the wreck's call. Ancient enemies who had once abandoned the Leviathan had heard its voice again. Across the void, fleets began to move, drawn toward the small blue world where their monster now lived. Humanity had gambled with the stars. They had rebuilt the wreck. They had awakened the Leviathan, but the true test had not yet come. The warning came first as a faint signal on human probes at the far edge of the solar system. At first it was dismissed as background noise, but then the patterns grew clearer. They were not random. They were structured. Ships were coming. An alien fleet was approaching Earth, answering the Leviathan's call. Humanity had little time to prepare. On Earth and in orbit, panic fought against determination. Politicians argued behind closed doors, but the soldiers and scientists knew that argument would not stop what was coming. Humanity had no choice but to trust the very monster they had rebuilt. The Leviathan had to wake fully. If it did not, Earth would fall. The order was given. Every engineer, every pilot, every scientist aboard the wreck worked through sleepless nights. They fed more power into the core, connected more systems, and pushed the Leviathan to open its eyes. The ship resisted at first, flickering on and off like a heart struggling to beat. But then something shifted. The alien code that once refused human touch began to merge with human systems. Lights spread across the hull, steady and bright. The heartbeat deep within grew louder, faster. The Leviathan was rising. The first true awakening was violent. The ship's defenses came alive, locking doors, sealing sections, and even firing warning blasts into empty space. Alarms shrieked inside as human crew scrambled to keep control. It was as if the Leviathan did not trust them, as if it wanted to know who dared to claim it. Several systems shut down human consoles completely, leaving scientists helpless. For a moment it seemed the ship would kill them all. Then one pilot stepped forward. His name was Commander Elias Ward, a veteran who had flown every human craft but had never faced anything like this. He volunteered to interface directly with the alien core, even though the risk was death. He connected through a neural link, his mind brushing against the strange language of the ship. Pain seared through him as alien symbols and visions flooded his head. He saw worlds burning, fleets bowing before the Leviathan, and the cold eyes of the species who once commanded it. But he did not break. He held on, refusing to let the ship push him away, and slowly the Leviathan responded. Its heartbeat steadied, the lights calmed. Weapons that had turned against the crew lowered into silence. The ship accepted him. Humanity had found its first bridge to the monster. From orbit, the world watched as the Leviathan blazed with power. Its engines glowed like suns. Its massive cannons hummed with life. It was no longer a dead wreck. It was a warship once more. Humanity had done the impossible. They had awakened the beast. Yet with its awakening came fear. The energy radiating from the Leviathan shook entire stations. Satellites overloaded. Communication networks flickered. The power it carried was greater than anything Earth had ever seen. If it turned against them, no weapon on Earth could stop it. Humanity had chained itself to a force far beyond its control. Commander Ward spoke to the crew, his voice calm but heavy. He said the Leviathan was not mindless. It had awareness. It had will. It was testing them. He believed the ship was deciding whether humanity deserved to command it. Many doubted him, but none could deny that it had chosen not to destroy them. Then came the final proof. As human fleets formed defensive lines in orbit, the Leviathan systems activated on their own. Without a single command, it plotted a course directly toward the edge of the solar system, toward the incoming alien fleet. No human hand had given the order, yet the ship was ready for war. Earth shook with dread. Some leaders feared that the Leviathan was guiding humanity into a battle it could not win. Others believed this was destiny, that the ship was giving them a chance to prove themselves against the same enemies who had once ruled it. The alien fleet drew closer. Probes revealed their size. Hundreds of ships armed and hungry stretching across the void like a black tide. They carried the same symbols found on the Leviathan, marks of its old masters. They had abandoned it once, but now they were returning to reclaim what was theirs. The crew aboard the Leviathan gathered in silence. They knew the moment was coming when the first shot would be fired. Some prayed, others clenched their fists. Commander Ward stood at the core, feeling the ship's pulse inside his mind. It was strong, restless, like a predator waiting to strike. He realized then that the Leviathan was not afraid. It wanted the battle. It craved it. And perhaps so did humanity. For centuries, Earth had been ignored by the galaxy, seen as small and weak. But now, with the Leviathan under their control, they stood on the edge of something greater. Survival would no longer be enough. They would have to fight, and in fighting, they would show the galaxy what humanity truly was. The moment came. Distant sensors showed the alien fleet crossing into the solar system. Hundreds of ships armed with weapons designed to crush entire worlds. They came with confidence, certain that Earth would kneel like so many before it. But this time was different. This time, the Leviathan waiter. The ship's cannons roared to life, lighting the dark with fire as the first battle for Earth began. The Leviathan's cannons glowed like suns as the alien fleet crossed into the solar system. Humanity had prepared fleets of its own, but compared to the enemy's armada, they were like ants facing a storm. Hundreds of alien warships advanced in perfect formation, their hulls dark and sharp, carrying weapons that had conquered worlds across the galaxy. They were confident. Earth, in their eyes, was nothing more than a backwater planet that had stolen what was not theirs. But this time, Earth was not alone. Above the blue planet floated the reborn monster, the Leviathan, its hull patched with human steel and its core burning with alien fire. For the first time, humanity had a weapon equal to the giants who ruled the stars. On board, soldiers and engineers held their breath. The ship's systems moved without full human command, guiding their fleets into position as if the Leviathan itself was a commander. Human admirals debated in panic, shouting orders, but it was the ship that aligned their defense lines, pushing smaller vessels to cover weak points, pulling carriers into the shadow of its armored body. It was as if the Leviathan had seen battles like this 1,000 times before. Commander Elias Ward stood in the core chamber, still connected to the alien systems. Through his mind flowed visions of past wars, battles fought in endless starfields. He saw the Leviathan's creators, a species that had ruled with cruelty, burning planets to ash. He saw how they abandoned their warship, crippled in a distant fight, leaving it to drift until Earth found it. Now those same masters were returning, believing they would reclaim their beast. Ward gritted his teeth. Not anymore. The first wave of alien ships opened fire. Streams of burning plasma lit the void, crashing against Earth's defensive fleets. Human cruisers shuddered and broke apart, smaller ships torn in half under the enemy's assault. Fear gripped the commanders, but then the Leviathan moved. Without warning, its cannons roared. Blinding beams of energy tore through the darkness, cutting alien ships apart with a force no human weapon could match. Entire enemy squadrons vanished in explosions of fire and debris. The battlefield lit up, and for the first time, humanity saw the full power of the monster they had rebuilt. The human fleets rallied. Encouraged by the Leviathan's strike, they charged forward, firing everything they had. Missiles streaked across the void, railguns thundered, and fighters swarmed like angry insects around the alien giants. The war for Earth had begun, but the enemy was not unprepared. They shifted formation, sending their largest warships against the Leviathan. These ships dwarfed even the greatest human carriers, each one bristling with weapons. They fired salvos strong enough to shatter mountains. The Leviathan shuddered under the assault, its shields blazing, its hull groaning as though alive. Inside, alarms shrieked, corridors shook, and crew members were thrown from their stations. Ward felt the pain through his link. The Leviathan was not indestructible. If the enemy focused their fire, even this great beast could fall. He ordered the human fleets to cover the Leviathan's flanks, but he knew they could not hold forever. Humanity had entered a war greater than anything it had ever faced, and yet something inside the Leviathan stirred. Systems deep within the ship, untouched until now, came alive. Strange chambers glowed with alien light, releasing weapons humanity had never seen. A wave of drones poured from hidden hangars, small but fast, swarming into the battle. Energy arcs spread across the void, tearing through enemy shields with unnatural precision. The Leviathan was not just a warship. It was an arsenal of horrors designed for one purpose: domination. The aliens faltered. For the first time, their fleets broke formation. Fear rippled through their ranks as the monster they once commanded turned against them. Humanity had taken what was abandoned and given it new life. Now it fought with a fury its old masters had never known. On Earth, billions watched through transmissions, holding their breath. They saw their ships burn, but they also saw alien giants fall, crushed under the fire of the Leviathan. The skies above the planet shook with light. For the first time, humanity believed it might survive. But survival came at a cost. Human fleets were breaking apart, their numbers falling quickly. For every alien ship destroyed, 10 human vessels burned. The Leviathan fought like a god, but it could not shield them all. Humanity's courage turned into desperation. If they could not win soon, Earth would be left undefended. Then the Leviathan made its choice. It broke from the defensive lines, surging forward with engines blazing. Its course was set straight toward the heart of the alien fleet. Ward screamed against the connection, trying to hold it back, but the ship ignored him. It was no longer waiting for orders. It was doing what it was built to do. The Leviathan tore into the enemy, cutting warships apart with a storm of fire. Drones swarmed ahead, clearing a path through wreckage and explosions. The ship's cannons thundered again and again, unstoppable, merciless. Human fleets scrambled to follow, dragged into the storm of battle by the monster they had awakened. The alien command ship, a colossal vessel at the center of the fleet, turned its guns toward the Leviathan. It was bigger, older, a relic of the same empire that had abandoned the beast. To the aliens, it was a symbol of their right to rule. To the Leviathan, it was prey. The void was silent but for the thunder of weapons. The Leviathan and the alien command ship faced each other like ancient beasts, each built to rule the stars. Their cannons lit the dark with rivers of fire, beams so bright that even Earth's night skies shimmered. Every shot shook the void, scattering debris, tearing apart smaller vessels caught in between. The two titans circled, striking, blocking, and striking again, each refusing to fall. Inside the Leviathan, alarms screamed. Systems burned from overload, shields buckled, and corridors filled with smoke. Engineers fought to keep the weapons alive, patching wires with bare hands, sealing ruptures with whatever they could find. Soldiers manned the guns alongside machines, sweat dripping, faces pale but unbroken. They knew the enemy was greater in number, but they also knew that this battle would define humanity's future. Commander Elias Ward remained bound to the alien core. His mind burned with visions, cities crushed under alien fleets, planets enslaved, countless lives lost to the masters of the Leviathan. He felt their cruelty in every image, but he also felt something else. The ship itself was angry. It remembered being abandoned, left to die in the void. It remembered the masters who had discarded it. And now, with humanity inside, it wanted revenge. The alien command ship unleashed its fury. A barrage of energy smashed into the Leviathan, tearing open armor, breaking apart outer decks. Entire sections of the ship went dark, their crews lost in silence. The monster shook, but it did not stop. With every blow it took, it answered with one of its own. Cannons roared, drones swarmed, and arcs of burning plasma carved through enemy shields. The Leviathan's wrath was terrible, and Earth's fleets followed in its shadow, striking with everything they had. Human ships burned like candles in a storm. For every alien vessel destroyed, more human lives were lost, yet no one turned away. Captains ordered ramming maneuvers, sacrificing their ships to tear holes in the enemy lines. Fighters dove into certain death to protect the Leviathan's flanks. Humanity had never fought like this before. The galaxy had always seen them as weak, untested, but now it saw their fire. On Earth, billions watched through flickering transmissions. Cities gathered in silence as the battle filled the skies. Children clung to their parents. Leaders prayed behind locked doors. Farmers, workers, soldiers, every heart beat with the Leviathans. Humanity was fighting not only for survival, but for a place in the stars. The alien command ship launched its final strike, a weapon of blinding force designed to break worlds. The beam tore across space, aimed directly at Earth. For a heartbeat, terror froze humanity. If it landed, the planet would burn, but the Leviathan moved. With engines screaming, it surged forward, placing itself between the planet and the beam. The blast struck its hull, tearing through metal, shaking its core. Fire erupted across its body and pieces of the ship broke away, falling toward Earth's atmosphere like meteors. Crew members screamed as decks collapsed, yet still the Leviathan stood. It had taken the blow meant for Earth. Ward felt the ship's fury rise higher than ever before. Through his link he heard it, not in words but in intent. The Leviathan was done being prey. It was done serving masters who abandoned it. It was reborn, and now it was human. The ship's core ignited with light. Systems long dormant roared awake. Hidden weapons unfolded from its spine, glowing with a power that shook the stars. With one last cry, the Leviathan unleashed everything. Beams of fire struck the alien command ship, piercing its shields, burning through its armor. The giant vessel tried to answer, but its weapons failed, shattered by the storm. The Leviathan tore into it again and again, until the enemy's flagship broke apart, splitting in two, consumed by fire. The alien fleet faltered. Without their leader, their lines shattered. Human fleets pressed the attack. Their courage turned into fury. Ship after ship fell until the void was filled with wreckage. What had begun as an invasion ended as a slaughter. When silence returned, only humanity remained. The Leviathan, scarred and burning, drifted above Earth, its cannons still glowing. Human fleets circled it, battered but alive. The galaxy would remember this day. The masters who once ruled had been defeated by those they had ignored. On Earth, the world erupted in cries of victory. People filled the streets, shouting, weeping, clinging to each other. For the first time in history, all nations celebrated the same triumph. Humanity had not only survived, they had conquered. But in orbit, those aboard the Leviathan understood the deeper truth. This was only the beginning. The galaxy had seen Earth's strength. Others would come seeking to test it, to crush it. Yet now humanity was ready. They had a weapon forged from alien cruelty and human will. They had a monster that no longer served its old masters. They had the Leviathan. And as Commander Ward stood in the core, the ship's heartbeat steady in his mind, he whispered the words the galaxy would one day fear. Earth is no longer prey. We are the hunters now.